What does superstar martial arts action hero Jackie Chan have in common with the Apostle Paul? Stay tuned to This, That, and Theology and find out. You're watching This, That, and Theology, where we help you apply your worldview in the world around you. In the first century, there was probably no more recognizable missionary figure than the Apostle Paul. He took multiple missionary journeys, planted multiple churches that then went out and planted churches, and continued his relationship with those churches by sending them pastors or sending them letters to help address specific issues. In the book of Acts, we have a story where Paul is in Athens and he goes to Mars Hill, and he's standing there among multiple idols and altars, and he notices that there is an altar that's marked to the unknown God. So he looks around to the people and says, "This altar here for the unknown God, I know who that is. Let me tell you about him." And then he unpacks the gospel. Some people didn't want to hear it, but others, it says, came to know the Lord through that time. Paul was using the things around him to speak to a people who had no context for the gospel so that they could understand the good news of Jesus Christ. In Acts 17, we see Paul in Athens. That's where he's speaking on Mars Hill. In Acts 2, we see the church growing in Jerusalem, where when the gospel was preached, it was preached to people who already knew the context of who God was, the fact that we were sinful in view of our Creator, and that we were in need of a Savior. That's not the same context that we have in Acts 17. So one question that people ask is, do we live now in a context of Acts 2 or Acts 17? If we were in Acts 2 culture, the majority of people would know the context in which the gospel happens. We would know that God created the heavens and the earth, and that we as created beings are subject to God as our creators. We let Him define what righteousness is, so that when we sin, when we rebel against God, we are worthy of a just punishment. This is where in Romans, Paul talks about all sin having a consequence. The wages of sin is death. We understood that our sin against a holy God required sacrifice. And so when Jesus is held up as that sacrifice, we get really excited because of Jesus' death on the cross, because of his death, burial, and resurrection. We are restored, we are renewed, we are reconciled to our God. That happens in a context that in an Acts 2 setting, people know. However, we're not in an Acts 2 context anymore. We've become increasingly secular. And the most important thing to take from that is that we don't have a context in which to speak the gospel in, because most people don't know it. People don't know the historical narrative of the Bible. At best, they think that David and Goliath didn't really happen, that it's just a story. When we look at the Old Testament or the New Testament, it's not common knowledge what's being taught there. So what is our Mars Hill? Our Mars Hill happens to be things like movies and video games. They know the Avengers, they know Batman and Superman, they know Harry Potter and the Super Mario Brothers. These are things that most people can actually speak to. I went to a preaching conference some years ago where the pastor, who was giving a workshop on preaching the book of Revelation, said, "People don't know the Bible anymore." He said the common lexicon for the American culture was no longer the Bible. It was Harry Potter. I would even argue now that it may not be Harry Potter, but it is things like Marvel. People know the superheroes from Marvel. They know the stories that are being told there. So like Paul, you and I need to use the tools that we have on hand to preach the gospel, using things like Star Wars, using Iron Man, using whatever we have. I love Kung Fu films, and one of my favorite actors to watch is Jackie Chan. I love his comedic timing and the way he looks like he's really a guy who just got trapped in a situation that he wants to get out of. When you watch a Jackie Chan fight, it's almost always filled with him using this, that, and everything that he can find around him. From Jackie Chan's first strike, there is a memorable scene where it ends with him using a folding ladder like it's a weapon. I can't think of any better illustration of how Paul was ministering to the people in Athens in Acts 17. We need to use everything that we have on hand because the world around us doesn't have the context that understands that we are indeed sinners in need of a Savior, and that the only Savior, the only acceptable way to make peace with God is through Jesus Christ. As he said in John 14:6, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father but through me. If you watch these videos on this, that, and theology, you know we're trying to use the cultural context that we're in right now to spread the good news of the gospel. If this video has been helpful for you, or any of our videos on the channel have been helpful, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Leave a comment below to let us know if there's anything you'd like us to talk about in a future video. Thanks for watching This, That, and Theology. I hope you have a great week.